Hey everyone, welcome back to the Insight Podcast. I'm your host Seth, the CMO at Syte, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Mikey, the CEO at Syte. Today we're going to be talking about personalization, how to make your customer feel like a person when they're shopping on your website. And ultimately, the big thing when it comes to personalization and why you want to do it is you want better conversions. As an e-commerce store owner, the pivotal thing that you need to focus on, and I hope that this is your main goal, is that you want sales. Makes sense. So by implementing a personalized strategy, you essentially help that conversion funnel. People feel like they're shopping as a person. Okay, I'll edit it in post. I've had enough.
Cool.
Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you. So, Settler is usually extremely efficient at his intros. We don't do many takes, Settler. We do no takes.
No,
Maybe
seldomly.
pop out 2-3 minutes max. We're struggling with this intro. It's our attempt number 4, but I think we've done it, Settler. Let's go.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, let's talk about personalization.
Personalization.
Let's just understand what it is and reasons to do it. So, I think the secret of marketing as a whole, if you can boil it down to one statement, is can you make your marketing more relevant to the person, the recipient of your marketing, than anyone else? The more relevant you can make it, the better people react, and the better your conversion rate is, and the better your sales look. And what personalization does, we're going to speak about all the different ways you can do it today. It essentially makes your website from a one-to-many to ideally as close as possible to a one-to-one. So if Seth visits the site, it should speak to him as closely as possible, understand his pain points, understand his needs, and give him the offerings that solve for that. If I come to the website, it should do the same thing for me. It might be the same, it might be different based on what I'm interested in, but that's what personalization in a nutshell should do.
Awesome. Now that we've got the definition out of the way, I'm sure many people have actually experienced this, even when you get like a personalized email, just by having like that little first name that someone, or a personalization tactic that people use, when you sign up for an account, then they say, hey, Greg, hey, first name. And that's essentially one of the tactics of personalization if you didn't get it from the intro there. So let's talk about one of the biggest ones, Mikey. What is one of the big ones that people put on their site, like almost as a red flag when you look at it, or when you're analyzing an e-commerce website and they don't have it? What's the number one personalization tip that someone can add to their website today that can make a customer feel that it's a one-to-one?
Yeah. So I think the two boxes that personalization can or should tick, and if it ticks both, even better. But box number one is, does it mention something, or does the user recognize in some way that it's speaking to them, even if it doesn't add extra value to them? And I'll speak to that shortly. And the second thing is that if it does recognize something specific to them and can add value, even better. So I'll give you an example of each. So we've done this experiment or this personalization multiple times before. Let's assume you have a website and you want to give a discount of 5% off site-wide. Now, option one is to put a banner on the website to say 5% off site-wide, anyone that purchases today. Option number two is actually make it specific or personalized to the people browsing. And what we did in the past, we actually we added location identifiers. So we said, if a person's coming from suburb X, then actually change the discount code to actually represent something that represents that suburb. So for example, if someone's coming from Sandton, you want to say, use code Sandton5 to get 5% off if you're shopping from Sandton. And if you're shopping from Bryanston, same thing, use BRA5, and you're able, through all these personalization tools, to actually recognize the location they're coming from and then present them with a different message and a different voucher code based on that. So that's an example of a personalization that doesn't actually add much more value to them. If it just said 5% off, that would make no difference to them. But the fact that we've recognized something specific to them or personal to them increases conversion tremendously. So the more things you can identify and make mention of, the better. Second example, and the even better example, is that if you can actually start adding value through personalization. So as an example, this is probably the most common one people use, new versus existing users, or registered users versus new users. And if you can greet current customers or people that have already registered with you with welcome back, and then try and push them to make the next step. That works really well. And as opposed to a new user, where if you want to try and push them to register, you want to almost speak to them knowing they're a new user and actually mention something along those lines. So
Yeah.
I think those are like the two types of categories of personalization that exist.
Yeah, and you see that one. Oh, I've seen it like within the past 3 days as I've clicked on some e-commerce sites. Like right as I jump on it, it's like, oh, sign up for my newsletter right now, and you'll get 10% off. That's a prime
Exactly.
example of that new user versus existing user, and
Exactly.
it actually works really well from the business's perspective, because also sometimes you don't always want to be giving discounts to everyone all the time. So from your
Exactly.
customer lifetime or customer acquisition costs, that can go into that for your new users
Yeah.
and your old users as well.
Yeah. So I think today we want to give, like I'll say, the seven big personalization options or tactics to people. Use them all, use one of them, but definitely try some of them because they definitely assist conversion tremendously. And they're relatively easy to set up through a personalization tool like VWO or something to that effect. All right, so I think let's just go through a quick hit this, Ethela.
Sure.
All right, so number
Number
one,
one.
I think uh, I
Oh,
think most people have seen this experiment or seen this personalization, but probably not employed it on their own website. Is on the king of all conversion sites, the in the hotel space, the Booking.coms and the hotel. If you ever visited those sites, which I'm sure the listeners have, on a mobile device, it will say like a mobile special or mobile discount offer. And the reality is those are real offers. They typically give some percentage, 5% off or something to that effect to someone if that's shopping on mobile. So why do they do that? They do that for two reasons. One is again just for just for the sake of mentioning and being personalized helps a lot. So it creates that urgency. It makes the recipient feel special. I am on a mobile device. They're giving me an offer. If I go away now, that may not exist any longer. And secondly, mobile is a great way or a great device to give the discounts on because pretty much on every channel, mobile converts the worst because your screen's that much smaller. People aren't like in buying mode as they are on a desktop. So if you're able to overcome that with giving a specific mobile discount, that helps tremendously. So I'd say number one that I think most people experience but not use themselves is device specific discounts. What do you think? You like that, Sefela?
I dig it. I dig it. Definitely, even in the lead world, both in the e-commerce world as well, mobile is generally quite a bad converter. So just giving that extra reason for someone to convert on a mobile is like yeah, just convert more and more and more. So
Yes. All right, let's go to a few others. Let's go. We've
yeah,
number two. We kind of mentioned this. I'll kind of go through quickly through it. The new versus returning. It's quite easy to recognize on any platform if someone's a new user, returning user, and then to um, show them the corresponding message quite easily. And then coupled with that, just because we mentioned it quickly, the location thing. And this is a great hack. Again, it's really using personalization for the sake of it, but it helps conversion rate tremendously. If you're able to recognize by message where people are coming from on your site and actually greet them according to that, so it doesn't have to be a discount. You can actually say, "Hey, Santonites, hey, Durbanites," whatever the case is. It's an amazing feeling for people that they like being recognized. That and it helps conversion. And second, the other thing that it solves a lot of is there's always a fear, particularly from people coming to a site from not major metropolitans that do deliver there. And I've seen this really work well, particularly for international visitors, if you do deliver to international. And particularly if they see your pricing in a different currency, to immediately mention that, hey, Botswana, we now deliver there, or hey, the US, we deliver to the States. And Amazon do this again now. Obviously, Amazon exists in South Africa, but even before, when they used to deliver from their .com, they used to immediately greet you with like a flag, like a SA flag, kind of giving the comfort that deliveries can happen external. So that's kind of a cool one.
yeah. Yeah,
What
essentially
number one?
acting
Three.
as that social. No, no, just going back there. It's like the same for the deliveries, like giving that a surety. It's same as
Yes.
your social science. It kind of exists as your testimonials, that trust factor. Why would someone
Yeah.
trust you? And it kind of solves exactly that. When people are like, I'm worried about scaling overseas. I'm worried about users not being comfortable on the site, this is the solve for that, and it works
Yes.
really well.
Yes. And
Number
just
three,
squeezing in number
Mikey.
four there, just while we're talking about
Oh,
overseas visitors, the one I've seen, particularly in the hotel world, work very well, and it's a massive drop off point, usually, if not solved for, is dynamic pricing or dynamic currency converters. If you're a US client or a US company and you're selling stuff in dollars, I think you can probably ignore this tap. But if you're pretty much anywhere else in the world, maybe with the exception of euros, people are not typically familiar with your currency. So if you're just using South Africa, if you're a South African hotel and you have a lot of international guests, it's wrong to assume they immediately know what the rand means and is. And yes, it's easy to go to Google for them just to kind of do a comparison and see what it is in their local currency, but it's an extra step and it's definitely a drop-off point. So if you're able to use like a currency converter in that definitely helps a lot.
awesome.
But anyway, last thing. Let's put the final three. So that's number four. Let's put the final three personalization tips into one bracket, and this is, I would say, the useful personalization tips, meaning that they speak to personalization, but they also speak to the user's benefit. They all like add benefit to the user experience. And one is purchase history. If you're able to recognize what people have bought before and show them similar products. So just like when you're buying something and they show you similar products, if you're able to do that first and foremost before they're even down the funnel and buying, that's really useful. The part just before that, product recommendations is hugely valuable. Again, based on what they're viewing now and what they've viewed in the past. And then I would say the last one, which is useful, is taking into account, like I'll say their full order history. So not only what they bought, but how many times they bought, trying to encourage more loyalty and that type of stuff. Those really work really well. And I've almost never seen people do this, but it's so powerful. When someone's ordered 10 times, and to be able to like recognize with them and show some appreciation through a level of personalization is a great idea.
Awesome. I think maybe we can just talk a little bit about how this personalization, especially in these last few, like what are the avenues that one can go down to actually execute? Obviously, there's the platforms we spoke about in the beginning, sorry, it's just slipped my mind what it's called again.
VWO.
Yeah, VWO. But then there's also that you can go down the channels of email. I think you can bring in a little bit of personalization when it comes to, I think like Facebook and SMS, you can do a little bit on there from a personalized
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, I think there's tons of personalization, I guess, could be applied to anything.
Yeah.
I think when we probably should do another whole thing in a whole personalization example in other avenues, whether it be Google Ads or
Yeah.
or email. I think just because you mentioned that, because that's kind of interesting. Like, I think the most common one, the most popular one at the moment is VWO. I used to love Google Optimize, and then they sunsetted it, so they took it away from me. That's like, yeah, I mean, there's a number of testing or personalization tools. But just because you mentioned like another platform, and this is where you can get really advanced, is you're able to always link these tools with traffic sources coming in. And if you can link that to Google Ads, that's where it gets really fancy and really, in some ways creepy, but in some ways cool. Because you're able to then, use UTMs through Google Ads, I guess through Facebook Ads as well. But Google Ads, you have a
Yeah.
much clearer intent of the person. And you're able to actually implant text on the site matching the search query. So for example, let's say you sell pet food and someone has typed into Google cheap pet food. You're able to then implant that text on the landing page for that user. So instead of getting to a generic site, you're able to say like cheap pet food specialists. Let's say that's your niche. And it's
Yeah.
amazing to be able to greet that user like that. Google Ads offers like the rare case of when you get traffic from Google Ads, particularly search, maybe shopping is a bit more complicated, but from search, the intent of the person is very well known. You can understand just by what they're searching, what they're looking for, and therefore you can match that just like you would in your ad. You could match it on the website.
Yeah, match it with your page, match it with the text, match it with the descriptions. And what's fantastic about all of these platforms, it's Google loves it when the person has the best experience, and the experience that they have is incredibly relevant for them. It affects your Google Ads score and how it performs, and you'll actually get better results when the customer and the searcher has a better experience on your website. So by having it more relevant, lower your costs on Google, improve your conversion rate and make the customer feel more important, which is ultimately the most important thing to do when it comes to sales.
That's the game, Syte.
That's the game.
So I hope you enjoyed our episode on personalization, and I hope you definitely try some of the tactics we spoke about today. If you did like it, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a comment. Tell us what happened when you tried one of these tactics. I'm looking forward to see you next week.